it at your leisure. And then if there's any documents we want to share at a later date, they can all go up there as a space. You just need to create an account for yourself with an email and a password. If you haven't already done it, you can do that going forward. Okay, so we're going to record. That's fine. Thank you.
Can I just get people to pop in the chat if they're okay with the recording, just so that we have that record?
Yeah, just
thanks.
You know, keep it right. Just say okay to record in the chat box, and then it's sort of on the record. Don't get accused of that's grand. So I'd like to just check in a little bit on where we've come from, and then we'll go to, well, what's happening? You've referred to some of the stuff that's going on, why we're trying to take this time out, and then we'll have a chance to sort of share some of those golden nuggets. So James sent me a quick potted history, which I've popped on a slide here. So I'd like to share that with you, and then perhaps ask one of the directors or to maybe talk us through that. So I've got here some headings. So yeah, that's what I've got. Anybody want to sort of fill in some details about that? So we've got those are the first points, and then the second point takes us up to here. So there's a little background. Any volunteers? And were there any key things that you think? I guess my question is, part of that history, what do you think? What have been the building blocks to why Evolve is the way it is now? How do you think that history has linked? Maybe John or Crystal, really, you were there.
So it's probably worth going back to the original aim. So there was a piece of legislation called the Public Services Act, which is still around now, which kind of mandated social value as part of any public contract. So that was kind of a bit of a policy driver. And then the idea of this is, because it was a very fragmented market, was to offer a business or a public organisation a one-stop shop to deliver that social value, of which was the pre-employment and the apprenticeship bit. Probably the most significant kind of, I guess, what was good, but also a bit of a curveball, was winning the shared apprenticeship scheme for London, because that took so much work. That became the focus,
right?
Which is where Clarion came in, because it was we're employing a lot of people and having to cash flow that.
Yeah,
and it is just labour intensive, so we ended up focusing very heavily on that.
And I'd say that's in any business, but I guess it's the same for social enterprise. You win a big contract, you take a big deal on, and you're only a small group, then that creates all sorts of issues in terms of capacity, cash flow, whether to deliver. So if we're going to spend some time thinking about what could we be doing, we have to think about what's practical now, but what might happen if we did get another big slice of work. I know that obviously there's lots going on at the moment. Okay, so that's a interesting bit of history there in terms of a big jump up. So I'm getting there. 2015-17, you were managed by Clarion, and then there was a sort of breakaway, wasn't there? Is that right, John?
Yeah, I mean, with the Clarion connection, when we were, so I guess when we first started looking at Evolve and setting it up, Clarion is a housing association, so social landlord, and there's numerous of those around London and around the UK as well. But we also saw that the market being fragmented is around the councils not really talking to each other. There's a lot of kind of competition and wanting to be the best outside of next to each other. So we saw the gap in the market as something that was not connected to a housing association or a council specifically, or even a contractor that would work as a body to help move kind of apprentices around when it came to the CITB contract. And that's how we were able to win that shared apprenticeship kind of tender. We built up a board of directors from various different contracting companies, but also different housing associations and councils to work with each other and really build up that structure. But yes, originally, the whole premise of Evolve is around employability support, a one-stop shop offering young people and the opportunity to really kind of parachute in where they needed to at any one point. So it could be volunteering, or it could be internships, or it could be apprenticeships, or it could even be finding work or training, and offering information, advice and guidance as their kind of like golden thread to pull it all together and help them along that journey. So that was yeah, that was definitely the original premise for the whole thing. Sorry, you're on mute there, James.
I got my dog in the room. A dog starts to drink water out of the dog bowl. It sounded deafening to me. I thought I better mute myself. Anyway, I've written down here on my pad neutral broker. That actually trying to be something that brokers deals, because councils will do their own thing. Individual construction firms will all be wanting to show how publicly responsible they are. That actually by providing a sort of neutral space, that creates something kind of slightly unique, rather than one that is attached to a set housing association or council or whatever it is. So that really stood out for me as part of the history lesson. Anything else on this slide that you think is pertinent to mention? You know, for people like Jade who've not been in the organisation long, that you think affects how we see the world now. I've got here, the proposed merger, then standalone, then we've got the existing, contracts. Well, hey, kickstart, boom, and then.
What about the SCF framework? Because that was quite a big shift. She might not understand about that.
Say again, Terry?
The SCF framework, that was a big shift a couple of years back that isn't mentioned on there, that might interest Jade.
Somebody want to give me a heads up?
The best way of describing that is Evolve and Track, which is the franchise for one of the other areas, and Co-Train have basically had a monopoly. So the SCF framework is a procurement vehicle. So a local authority might want to build a school, rather than go through the whole procurement process, they can use what they call the SCF framework, which has already gone through that process. So it's a bit of a shortcut. And any project that a contractor won on that framework, they had to use Evolve for apprentices, or Track, or Co-Train. So it was a bit like a monopoly, really, and it made it a lot easier in terms of not having to move people around all the time.
Yeah, and the key thing with that really is around partnership building. When we first won that contract with that framework, there was a lot of meetings where we were going down to the offices, presenting, talking to all of the contractors about the benefits of using one like neutral organization as opposed to anything else. That was also CITB backed, because that's really why they really liked it. But what it did do was give a kind of guaranteed pipeline of work, which can sometimes, it can be great because you've got that guaranteed income coming in, but it also then kind of stops that innovation piece happening over time. And so I think, yeah, when we lost that, it's very much around then looking, well, what else do we need to do to actually bring in new contracts, really? And do we go back to the drawing board of like speaking and partnering with other housing associations, local authorities? Because that Public Services Act that John talked about initially is a really key part to how the CITB framework, or how the CITB programme runs. It's connected to procurement. So in any kind of goods, so say for example with Clarion, and how we started working with the CITB to set this up, we were procuring 1 billion. Yeah, it was actually, was it 1 billion or 1 million? I can't remember what it was, but it was a very big amount that we were procuring in terms of repairs and maintenance. So that's all of our cyclical and our reactive kind of repairs. So all of our contractors for that. So it was a really good time to start looking at apprenticeships within those contractors. So every housing association that delivers work, every local authority that delivers work has to use those services. So this was a great way then for the team to say, actually, if we're going to spend all this money with you, then we really want you to create apprenticeship opportunities, volunteering, whatever it is around employability, to support our local community and our local residents. And that was some of the big key selling points around it. And during that time, there were a lot of contractors that were delivering that themselves, but a lot that weren't. But there was a lot of pressure being put on them by the government, really, and in terms of like councils, you might start to see something very similar happening off the back of COVID as well, which I'm sure you've probably seen on the ground now a little bit, the conversations that are coming up. And yeah, so that was definitely a really big a big change and a big pivot. And one of the other things I noticed there in terms of the changes was coming away from Clarion. Clarion offered a really big back office support when it came to payrolls, other pieces, well, not so much for the apprentices, but just generally for the support for the team, like the office location, all of those types of things. So when it broke away, James was the person that really started to drive through all of those kind of streamlined processes when it came to making sure we had a CRM that worked and changing some of those things around and just putting all of the systems and processes in place when it came to folders and structures and compliance. And yeah, and so I think it's a forever going, it's a thing that needs to be continually happening, but James definitely helped to pull all of that stuff together and was one of the key people as we brought on the business manager role.
Because that convenience, if you like, is partly what people are buying, isn't it? That you can help them through that minefield because, you know, they just want to get on and, you know, build houses or repair houses, and so that's where I guess this phrase "one-stop shop" comes from, in partly because you're able to wrap that together. I guess the problem is though it's a kind of fast-changing environment. You know, the admin changes because the government creates a new scheme or a different scheme every year or two. It's the same, you know, those of you, well, you all said, you know, those of you with a background in, you know, learning and development, developing young people, it just bugs me so much that every government has to keep changing, it's just constant. Thanks, Jade. Quick question there.
Yeah.
You know, the sort of standalone as opposed to being part of a bigger body, a sort of an umbrella. Was it that independence that was the driver, having that sort of that independent brokerage? What was the driver to moving out of Clarion?
I think it always needed to, really. I mean, it was because in a way, when we talked about being neutral, it was never really ever going to be neutral if Clarion was always part of the background to it. So it needed to pull away and to be like a company on its own. And then I think like there's lots of different opportunities when you're smaller that you wouldn't get when you're bigger in terms of tendering. Social enterprises are able to apply for more things than, say, with Clarion, which would have a turnover of like 350 million, whatever it is, over time. And you can't then apply for those smaller things or apply for the awards in that way. So it was a conscious decision that happened, and to help it like kind of fit within that neutral aspect.
Good, thank you for asking the question. It's good we don't whiz past something that anybody's sitting thinking.
Yeah, I like this side thing. This is great to see all the questions.
Yeah. So anything pops up in there, and again, that we'll save any of that. And if you think, well, there's actually a point to be made, but you don't want to say it, you can just pop it into the chat in the box. So that's fine. James.
Yeah, James. I was just going to say. I mean, I think it is worth acknowledging that I'm not sure Clarion really quite saw the potential of Evolve as well, and actually, there wasn't really the appetite from Clarion to carry it on. So it was in part what Crystal was saying. We could definitely see the potential of it being standalone, but I'm not sure there was really the option to continue as it was. I met Clarion yesterday, and it's quite ironic. Yeah, I met them yesterday. It's quite ironic that you're going full circle on this, and they're saying, "Oh, we bring you in as the preferred supplier of apprentices to all our supply chain," and kind of recognising what Evolve does, when at the time they saw the problems more than the potential, didn't they? I think, and they saw the risk exactly, and I think the SCF, we should have put that on that slide really, because it's so significant, because it was the growth of the business. The business grew probably bigger than it realised it was going to, and then the risk increased. Clarion could see all of this developing around us, and yeah, they were kind of half in, half out with the processes. So Crystal says, yeah, we had to develop processes. We really did, and really quickly, because we weren't even getting paid. Contractors weren't paying us, and they should have been. So like stuff like that, and basically the money that should have been there wasn't. So all of that ties in. Yeah, it's a bit of a story. It's so significant, but yeah, all of that is a big part of it.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, James. So, Valeria, any questions from you? That this is kind of background is sort of fitting together with what you understand you're having to deliver.
No, we've had these conversations before, so at this point, till this point, yes, I'm familiar with the.
That's fine. Just checking in. John, did you want to say something there? I think, was it just the risk you?
No. I mean, they really summed it up. But yeah, there was also the CITV insisted it came out of Clarion as a part of the funding agreement, so it had to have like a separate board. And actually, at the time, the vote was to merge with Co-Train, who were a peer or franchise for another area. But unfortunately, that fell through. So that's how it kind of ended up standalone, I guess.
So what I hear when I'm listening to these last few weeks is that a really good track record, that your history in the sector puts you in a really strong position. That evolution, big, from small to big, and then to a bit smaller again, and then big again, and there's this constant ebb and flow depending on what the industry is requiring, what the government's doing, and this is both a blessing and disguise for social enterprises that I work with around the UK. That they can be small and they can be quite fleet of foot. They can be quite nimble, but then a big chance comes up, and then that's super scary because you think, well, how can we cope with that? And it's just knowing which ones to pick, and I guess that's the challenge. But there is often a cycle. The really good thing is if you can try and level that out a bit, so that you reach a stage where you can actually take the fluctuations that come about. But you do get these massive ones, particularly with government funded programs, it's just there. It's just the reality of being what we are. If we're going to play this middle person between private sector, construction, housing associations, local authority, government, then it's just there's going to be quite a lot of external pushes and pulls on us. The plus side is that we can flex a bit. We haven't become a huge monolith that means that it can't really think about that. So really good to hear the history. Hope that's got Jade in the picture a little bit. It wasn't all just for your benefit, because it kind of just reminds us about where we've come from. If I could share a screen, go ahead, James.
No, it's kind of, we've kind of passed the point. But I'm sitting here thinking about what the build up was, but as well, Crystal was working. We were working for Circle Housing. There was a merger had gone on at Clarion as well. So it was that disruption of the new housing association arriving. There was a huge restructuring process, wasn't there, within the business itself. So then it became Clarion. So that and they really, it was more of a takeover, wasn't it? Affinity Sutton really took Circle over. So they didn't know all the backstory of Evolve and so on. Sorry, I just had to get out of my head, James. The history there.
That's all good stuff. Okay, so if we're going to try and just get a handle on what you're seeing on the ground, I want to do first thing. I want to just sort of say, well, where are we right now? What do we think we're currently delivering? Then I want us to sort of look at the environment. You've mentioned a few things that are changing, the environment we're in, so we have to take stock, not just coming out the other side of a pandemic and what that is meaning for our, and I use this term, stakeholders, which is, it is the apprentices, it's people struggling to get work, it's also the housing associations, also the council. Stakeholders is a really generic term. We need to think about what's happening there. Let me just show a slide, which is what I think my understanding, and please correct me if I've got this wrong, is that you do. So this is a list. Again, if you can't see because the photographs are in the way, the pictures on the screen, you can press, there's different views at the top on the black bar. If you can shrink down the photographs of each other so you get a full picture of the screen. but I've got here from James primarily, providing a one-stop shop for individuals seeking access to the labour market and employers looking for recruitment or corporate social responsibility solutions. So there's that social bit. Trying to support disadvantaged individuals into labour market, acting as a temporary labour or recruitment agency, providing fragmented industries such as with a recruitment training solution, and providing a customer pathway and a solution to the need to meet the Public Services Act. So there's 6 sort of things there that we're saying we do, or we're trying to do. We may not do them, some of them as well as we want them to, or some are maybe more difficult to pin down because there's so much overlap going on. But could I ask you a wider question, which is, does that sound what you do, or is somebody saying, no, what about that? What right, in terms of what we are now, there's going to be where could we go? What else could we do? How could we evolve? No pun intended. But what I want to do is that what you think we do, or we just actually, no, we're missing that, or we shouldn't really say that because we're not doing that properly. So I'm really looking for some comment there.
I mean,
John.
I would say that probably that doesn't really reflect what Evolve is currently doing. So really, I would probably just pick on maybe one of the bullet points, providing fragmented industries such as construction, or just construction with apprentices. And I know recently, obviously the project that Jade and Kickstart will change that, but I would say it was probably just that bullet point, but that's my perception.
What, that you it's just construction, or
Yeah.
that you, yeah.
Just
So when
construction and just apprentices, except for the pre-employment stuff that's kind of happening at the moment. I'm not convinced on a lot of these other bullet points that that's what Evolve does, but I might be wrong. There might be bits that I don't know about.
And maybe I should come back to James, who helped with the scripting of this. Is this more? I mean, is this partly aspirational that you would put as trying to set your stall out, or is it, give us your background to how your readership for this?
Yeah, this isn't. I didn't. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not set in stone. By the way.
No. It's
this starting point.
Not, yeah, exactly. These weren't necessarily things that I put together. I didn't write these, but no, John's right. These are aspirations. This is more, I think, an attempt to go back to what Evolve was trying to do at the beginning. But no, it wouldn't be. You couldn't consider this a true reflection of what Evolve is doing. No. So John's picked up on that one point about it's just construction. That's absolutely right. The labour agency stuff we dip into, Terry, when we need to. We use it as a sort of trialing of apprentices, if you like, but nobody's viewing us as a labour agency. Definitely not. We've got it on the website, but it's not something we've ever spent a huge amount of time developing as a business or selling as a particular selling point. We have the disadvantaged individuals. I think we've had a fair conversation about that during these sessions, James, so far. So I think that we feel we did come to that conclusion, didn't we, over the last 2 sessions? We are, but there's more work to be done in terms of explaining that we're doing that. But I think that is what happens. I think that it would be fair to say that we don't provide too much additional training. The support is definitely there, but if there's a desire for us to provide additional training alongside the apprenticeships, then, although again, Terry, you'd say we dipped into it in terms of like tutoring people for like functional skills and stuff like that, but that could be clearer. I don't think anyone at the moment is viewing us as a one-stop shop. They view us as an ATA, an apprenticeship training agency, a place they come to for apprenticeship issues predominantly. And therefore, it wouldn't be a clear customer pathway for individuals either that are unemployed. That only really exists if we've got the funding at the time. And the Merton project dates back many years prior to my time. And so only in the last couple of years, when we've picked up pockets of funding, have we been able to run anything like that. And that's what Jade's doing now under Career Construct. And actually, we have got something there that we could probably build on It does altogether mean that, yeah, we are providing a solution for the Public Services Act, because a lot of that is around apprenticeships, and that's what we do as the shared scheme. So that'd be my take on that. I think this comes from a document that was more about aspirations than anything else, or looking back. Yeah.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it's in a way, it's a glimpse of how we could package ourselves if we, if some of the things came to fruition. What we have to think about is really what's doable, and what do we want as a team to do over the next few years in terms of strengthening the organisation, and making the most of opportunities that are out there. So that's fine. I mean, if nothing else, it just sort of sows the seed of how we could present ourselves and the sort of range of things we could offer if we knitted things together, perhaps a bit more than we are, and thought about how we presented ourselves. But that's, if you like, a little bit crystal ball. Let's take ourselves back one stage. What I want to do is just check in terms of, well, what's going on? What's prompted this? And we've made references to a challenging year and some of the changes in the last 2 years. The way that organizations tend to look at this is with something that people refer to as a sort of pestle analysis. So this is not by any means anything new, but if I could give it to you as a framework, I'm going to ask you for some comments in a moment. So the way one sort of tries to stand back and look at what's going on, and we say we'll do a pestle analysis, which is what's been happening politically, what's going on economically, socially. Technology maybe is changing, that's affecting the way our apprentices do their work. I don't know what's been going on legally. Obviously, we've had the Social Value Act, and environmentally, the need, what's driving us there. So there is a lot going on in the outside world. I thought it might be worthwhile just asking all of you to contribute to what you see as going on that's affecting or could affect where we head here. So we can't really think about, right, what's Evolve going to do over the next 3 or 4 years until we just take stock of some of the stuff that you're seeing on the ground. So what I thought I would do is ask Natasha to put up what's a whiteboard on the screen. And what we can do is we can shout stuff out, but we can also type into it ourselves. And if you don't have a type function on your computer or your iPad, then you can just shout it out. You can unmute, and Natasha will type it for you. So what are the sort of changes and things that you're seeing that are going on? So in terms of what's changed, what's making you think, oh, there's an opportunity, or actually we should be stopping doing that, or we could be doing it differently. So what are the sort of external factors that you're witnessing that are leading you to think about, we could do this differently? And again, it's a free-for-all. So what you can do is you go up to where the green box is. It says you're viewing Natasha's tech support screen. It says view options. And if you click on that little down arrow, there's a little button that says, there's a menu, and it says annotate. And then you get another little menu pop up, and you can click the T for text. T for text. And I've just clicked it. And then I'm going to click onto the document, and I'm going to write a word, pandemic, and I press enter, and it should appear on the screen. There's the word pandemic. So what you can do is say, the framework's changing, or, the local authorities are merging, and what are some of the things? So this is your chance you can speak the word, but you can also annotate it. So let's just get a handle on what you're seeing. It would be good if you do speak out as well. So don't feel you have to stay muted. So yeah, absolutely. Socially, we've got unemployment problems, and you could argue maybe more people getting into challenging situations. Good. So please do put them in there. And so it could be anything to do with local authorities, government, young people, the system's failing. I don't know. I just need to get that. So let's keep going. And what Natasha will do, if you inadvertently type over somebody, we'll just move it around. We'll just sort it out. So what are the changes going on? If you want to stop typing, then you click on the little red X in the annotation menu, and that changes your cursor back. If you feel that your cursor's gone into typing mode, you want to type something else, go back to view options, click on annotate, click on T for text, and then you can type away. So it's just literally a brainstorm. If I was with you, I'd be standing in front of a flip chart and we'd be shouting these things out, and I'd be scribbling them down. Is whoever wrote PPN, is that a planning note? Is that, somebody help me out there?
Yeah, public policy note.
Public policy, right? Okay. Yeah. So, and can you just define ESG for those of us that aren't in the jargon mode?
Yeah, sure. So it's environmental, social, governance. So this is kind of like a big focus for investment now, where it wasn't before.
Yeah. So I'm happy for you to type things and read them out. So then that's a big thing, is more and more companies looking to show that they are socially responsible. So whereas before, yes, we were being driven by the Public Service Act, but actually from a PR point of view, all organizations, whether it's local government, housing associations, etc., all trying to show that they are better for the planet, better for society, and looking for ways to do that. But just type away, just key in. If you type over somebody else, we can always move it. For the more technical of you, you'll also see you can change the color of your text if you really want to. Doesn't make any difference. What's a 106 agreement?
Section 106 is what companies, or how do I explain it? Section 106 is a kind of like the social value aspect of a planning application.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, good stuff. So that's affecting us. That's interesting, allowing us to widen our coverage. COVID and technology. Does that mean in terms of a greater geographic area, or to different types of people or businesses?
I think it's both, really. I mean, with technology now, and COVID has taught us that, like, we're speaking to you in Scotland and you're delivering this from Scotland, and Crystal's in Australia. So with technology now, you don't have to be face to face to deliver a program, and we're proving that with the Career Construct. And so I think that would allow us, the technology would allow us to widen our coverage to maybe the outlying areas of London, so the home counties and stuff like that. So we could still be there in person, but most of it would be delivered technologically wise, like online.
So not Scotland this year, but home counties maybe. Okay, yeah, no, fine. I think you're right. It changes. It is, the world of work has changed. We can't deny that. Flexible, working where it's office based for sure. But people have still got to be on building sites.
I think it's such an amazing time to take advantage of that as well.
And there's a lot of, and I guess a lot of organizations are reviewing how they're delivering things. Yeah, okay. If anybody is looking at this and they would, I'm asking idiot questions because I'm not sure what you mean. If anybody else has got a question and would like clarity on any of this, or even perhaps how do you think it's affecting Evolve? You've made a point there, then please do ask. Just unmute and speak to me, or ask a question.
What does the more sickness Evolve business model harder mean?
That because of COVID, you've got more people going off sick, and that means they're not billed out to the contractor, so that comes out the bottom line.
Okay, so for Evolve's business model.
Yeah, for the apprenticeship training agency bit of it.
Right. So that's a threat to our, the way we're operating, because we've got these changing. Yeah, so we've got to be very careful about how we, you know, how many of those we take on, if there's a risk until the pandemic calms down, then, and that's going to be, you know, it's going to be with us for a while, isn't it? And all of these things we have to start managing. Okay, other questions? Can I ask, on increased social issues due to the pandemic, what knock-on effect might that have? Do you think that might have? Anybody, whether you wrote it or didn't, what do you think it's bringing? Is that more people, disadvantaged people?
I think you're just seeing an increase in people's situations changing socially with the pandemic. You know, more people are indoors, so you've got a lot of mental health issues that are slowly starting to creep in, and you know that kind of phrase around boiling frogs, and people aren't really maybe noticing that that's starting to happen. I mean, it's a year in already, and everyone, it feels like normal that we're like this, but actually, if you think about 2 years ago, this would not be normal. So it's I think, yeah, looking at all of the other kind of things that happen with society and how Evolve can help, or are already helping, but maybe not talking about it and tracking it. Even just having those conversations with the apprentices, checking in on them, seeing how they're doing, they're all really good things. But sometimes it's always hard to know that, you know, that we're doing those things.
Valeria.
Yes, if I can add to that, we, even before the pandemic, we already had quite a lot of conversations around mental health and young people. So that was something quite present in our apprentice lives already. With the pandemic, I had a few conversations with my apprentices. What happens if I don't want to get vaccinated? Does that mean I won't be allowed on site? And there's panic. I have my mom at home, she's ill. I don't want to go on site, but I can't be followed because I'm not ill, but I don't want to put mom in risk. So there's a lot of anxiety around this already. And we don't know when this is going to finish, but for sure, we will face a lot of mental health issues after that. There's young people, even for us, we're more trained in this, but the young people definitely are struggling and will be struggling.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, the worry is we're having to put more resource in, more time for us. We've got a finite model of how much time you can spend with people. And this is something that's happening across the board, where you've got more disrupted lives, more challenging situations, but you know, it really puts pressure on your business model in terms of how much time you can spend with people. I don't know if that's where you're going with your question, Jade. Crack on. Yeah.
For me, I see that as a kind of an opportunity, because especially for the next generation of people that are going into work. So my sons, for instance, are 15 and 19, and I'm seeing a huge difference in how I was at their age, where they're very, like, their social anxiety, and particularly how the pandemic has affected them. But I think that that's an amazing opportunity to bid into different funding pots that would help those young people before they went into the apprenticeships. So a kind of like career construct, but with a more aim at looking at mental health and how that pandemic has affected them, and to teach them those social skills that they're going to need to go into the workplace.
So there's potentially a bolt-on to the pre-employment stuff in terms of support. And the government's announced millions of pounds for additional work for mental health. You know, it's part of the horizon scanning for Evolve, is to say, well, you know, is that something we want to get involved in? Would it help ultimately in us delivering more people into jobs and changing lives? That's what we believe in. Then you know, is that something we can do? Or if we can't do it, do we partner with somebody who can help deliver that? And that's the challenge, isn't it? Is it something we try and do ourselves? Or hang on a minute, it's not our area of expertise, and so then that becomes, you know, one of your business planning goals. So we're not in the detail here yet. We're still looking at the bigger picture, but it's really good to hear people's perspectives on that. This diagram doesn't need to stay fixed. I mean, we will save it, and it can be typed up and turned into a sort of what you see of the world going on. But it's just good to get some of these things out here, because the next thing I want to ask you is, okay, where specifically thinking about opportunities, where should we be going with Evolve? What do you think are things we could really improve on? Or what do you think we should really be what spaces should we be going into? Or maybe it's we shouldn't go into anything else. We just need to do what we do, but we need to do it better. I don't know. So I'm conscious that that's been us for over an hour. So how about if I ask Natasha just to save that, and we can always get this back up on screen, I think, if we want, and then just give you a 5-minute break. So do you want to go have a comfort break, and we'll see you back? And what we'll do then is I'm going to split you into 2 groups and get you working on, in smaller groups on what could we be doing. But hopefully that's given you a flavour of some of the background to where we're heading. So if you want to, what you do is just turn your screens off, turn your microphone on mute, disappear, make a coffee. See you in about 5. Time is marching on. So where are we now? 10 to, just gone 10 to 10. Thanks everybody for coming back. We didn't lose anybody in the tea break, which is always a plus. So what I'd like to do now, where are we? What I thought we would do. You've had a bit of a look about what's going on. Has anybody got any topical or just questions or comments? Let's just press the pause button that you'd like to ask or throw in at this point. We've had a conversation where we've come from. We've looked at what's going on in the world we inhabit, and now I want to ask you, right, what are we good at? What do you think we should be doing? We should really, our priorities for the next year or two. Before we do that, any questions, comments, criticisms, worries? Fire away, or talk about your qualification. No? Okay. Which case, let me share a screen. It says breakout groups. 2 things we want to try and do in these breakout groups. We're going to use something called a Google Doc, which means that in a moment, Natasha's going to put 2 groups up, group 1 and group 2. And I want you to click on the hyperlink relating to the group you're in. That will take you to a space on the internet where there is a document. I suggest that what you do is you choose one person to be the typist. And if it says, what is Evolve good at? Then I want you to type down, the things that you think we do really well. And that's what on question 1. And we're going to do that for 15 minutes. At the end of 15 minutes, I'm going to bring you back into the main group. I'm going to mix you up and we're going to do question 2. So you can't do question 2 until you've done question 1. And as I say, these documents will be saved and will be kept there for us to use afterwards. So the 2 questions are: 1, what are we good at? 2, what do you think we should be delivering? What else could we be doing? So in the chat box now, there should be 2 documents. So Crystal, James, and Valeria, you've got a hyperlink. So it means that all 3 of you will be looking at the same document at the same time, whilst, I don't know, James or Valeria types it. Now, the one complication is when we go back into our second discussion in 15 minutes time, I'm going to swap Crystal and John to the groups so that they get a chance to work with other people. But for the time being, just click on the hyperlink that's under your name, and then we're going to open the group. So that'll open a web page. Meanwhile, Natasha is going to invite you to join a breakout room, which means you'll go into a space with just the 3 of you. I might pop in and say hi, I might not. 15 minutes, what is Evolve good at? What do you think we do well? Okay, let's see how this works. So there's a little box appeared, it says, join breakout room. So you click on that and you can then work on the document together. Hopefully that will work. Okay. Right, well, in the light of that, and the light of the pestle, where do you think we could be going realistically? We'll take over the whole of the UK in 5 years' time, but for the next year or 2, where should we be going? So you're going to be invited to join some breakout rooms. So open the chat box. So you've got the big white box, and there's a document there and the group. So once you've clicked on the hyperlink, then you join the breakout room that Natasha's going to invite you to. Same system again, might give you a little bit longer, and we'll see how far we get. And breathe. Here we go. Well, look, you know, this is the start of a process. So what I'd like to do is just, let's have a very quick look. I know we're going to try and finish it on the dot at 10:30. Can I ask Natasha just to put up the first document and just see quickly what was talked about? So we've got what we're good at. And there's a whole lot of stuff on there. Some of you will recognize. And then at the bottom, what else could we be doing? That looks like other sectors, employability, tracking social value, diversifying, more training for apprenticeship, a retention bonus for apprentice, traineeship, health and well-being for pre-employment. We just mentioned that, like mental health program for letting them stay in work, packages for new apprentices. Okay, interesting. These are your documents, by the way. We're going to send them all to you. We're going to have a look at the other one just to see what new ideas came up with. So lots of things there that we do, that we're good at. There's a long list. You some really good lists of what you know you can deliver, and then down below that we've got you know, what do we observe going on within the sector? What else could we be delivering? Okay, utilizing Kickstart. Oh, London apprenticeship, measuring social value better. That's come out twice then. Talent pool of candidates that aren't successful. Right, okay. Proactive selling, agency service, construction line goal. Somebody else know what that's all about. Social value consultant. Ah. Apprenticeship levy transfer providing. Okay. Thank you for that. That's really, some of that I'm sure you've all talked about before, but maybe this is the first time as 6 of you, you've all flung it down and got those ideas down. So that's an output from today. So we will create a document which has got all those on. Part of the homework perhaps is just to merge them, strip out any duplication, and then we can have that to refer back to. But that has given a quick insight into some of the things that you have seen. Just any quick feedback on that process from those of you taking part? Crystal, you were just nodding there. Did you find that useful?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. I think it was great to hear all the ideas and things that have been happening. And, you know, I just think there's lots that we can do. I was saying in one of the groups, I think, you know, even just picking one and then just moving that one forward, it will be so good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from anybody else?
What I think is really great is seeing, even though we're in breakout rooms, that we all feel the same, and there's lots of crossover, which is great.
Yeah. It's not like the lifts were completely different. That would have been a bit of a worry. Okay, so thinking about next steps, we obviously need to try and move this on a bit for the next session next week. We'll get the documents to you. As I understand it, it's great to do some of this brainstorming. We've got some ideas. What we need to do is try and refine that and work a little bit harder so that we can be saying, well, here are the 2 or 3 priority areas going forward. And that's going to need a little bit of what, you know, James and the board feel and what the rest of you are seeing as opportunities. So I'd like to sort of work on that next time round, but I'm conscious we haven't done some of the other building blocks, which are just checking in on what are our values and what do we see as being the role? Because when I put up those bullet points, you said, oh, well, evolves a bit of that and we're doing a bit of this. What is our overarching mission that we need to have clear? because I said to the board when I first went on your website, I don't know what you stand for. So there's maybe a little bit about clarifying what we are. We need to be sure of that ourselves and to be able to express it in order to express it to the outside world. So I'm going to share with you a little document, but I'm also going to share what the website looks like. So on the, let me just see, I think this is it. Yeah. There we go. So this is what the website looks like. If you've logged on, oh God, there's a terrible picture. We will put up here where it says learning materials. We'll put any information up here. I just wanted to draw your attention to this where it says learning library. When you click on that, it opens up a whole new library of leadership, management resources, anything you want, if any of you are doing learning. So it says, please sign in. So I've created, I think, an account already. Hopefully I've got the password right. And when so you need to create another little account. And there are thousands of articles in here on values, mission, you know, team building, Jade, team management. It's all yours, all for free. So I just wanted to sort of show that to you, make sure you're aware that all of that stuff's available, okay? So that might be something you might want to dip into just out of curiosity. I also have a document. So in the chat box, there is an opportunity for me to share a file. So I'm going to try and just drop a file in here, which is some background reading on that I'd like you to have a look at. That's if my computer will let me find the space. Bear with me 1 second.
Just to note, once James sends the document, you'll need to download it before you go off the call.
I can email it separately. So in the chat box, there's a thing that's it's got a little file. It's a little PDF about values and vision and mission and trying to sort all of those things out. I think that's maybe we need to look at that. What I'll do is I'll speak to John and Crystal and James on email and just clarify how we get the best out of the next couple of hours when we meet next Thursday. But you just hit that PDF, save it, and then you've got some bedtime reading. So final comments. James, we've got 2 hours next time round. What would you like to see come out of those 2 hours just to get this process to the next level? What's your thinking?
Well, we looked at the ideas there, haven't we? Mm-hmm. So, and you've mentioned the mission, our ideas, yeah, that's it. And you mentioned the mission and the values and stuff. So it's, I suppose, tying the vision and mission values into what we're currently doing. Mm-hmm. And then looking beyond what we want to add to what we're doing, basically. Obviously, we're going to need to refine some of the points. So we will look at some, and it might be that John, Crystal and I have to refine that, develop them over the session. We've got to follow that. But if we've got a bit of a consensus for where we think we should focus our attentions, then I think that would be progress myself.
Okay. I've got a couple of models that when we have ideas about where we want to grow, that I'd maybe like to share with you. I'll send them to you over the next week, which is about how do you sort the wheat from the chaff? You know, as Crystal says, we've got 15 things we could be doing, but actually, which is the one or the two that would really get us to the next best place with all of our customers? So thanks for that.
James, sorry. I'm sorry, just quick, just to have a bit of a conversation around scale as well, just the scale of the things that we want to do, because I think, yeah, there'll just be that conversation around, yeah, we want to grow this, but I think we just need a bit of a conversation around to what extent and when. Sorry, just that last bit.
Look, we've all got to be realistic. You know, several of you made comments about how busy it is, the amount of change, the diversity of the work you do. We have to make sure there's a dose of realism on all this. Look, we're not trying to completely change the whole thing. We're just trying to see, right, where should we go, and then how can we finesse our business plan to go forward. In one word, in the chat box, I'd like you all to type something. What are your thoughts on finishing today? Are you exhausted, energized, interested, enjoyed, didn't like, or great to meet Crystal? Just put in a word or two. Thank you very much. Hungry. Fair enough. Fair enough. We're keeping you from your breakfast. Just pop a word in there, and now you've got the gist of how I'm trying to run this with the slides and the breakout rooms. We'll do more of the same next time we meet, but I'm conscious I've stolen 3 minutes, but really great to have you all getting stuck in there. So what can I say, but thank you very much, and we'll be in touch on email, and you've got the link for Thursday, so we'll see you all next time. And Natasha, thanks very much. She's going to let me have the documents, and we'll send those, and we'll put them on that website. So
thank you very much.
Let you all go.
Thank you.
Good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
I think
Thank
the
you.
cat needs to be here next time too. I want the cat mascot here the next time.
Hey, he's got the
Yeah,
mascot.
so cute.
So what you can do is you can hit the red button